There's a quiet truth that many people never talk about, a truth that lives behind closed doors, in silent kitchens, in the footsteps of women who walk alone, not out of despair, but out of choice. She lives alone. No man beside her, no one to lean on but herself. And yet, she doesn't seem broken. She doesn't seem incomplete. In fact, if you look closely, you might even say she looks free. But society has always been uncomfortable with this image. A woman alone is often judged, pitied, misunderstood. They said she must be lonely, damaged, left behind. Carl Jung, the father of analytical psychology, saw it differently. Today we're going to uncover the psychological truth behind women who live without a man, through the eyes of Jung, and through the lives of countless women redefining freedom, wholeness, and strength. This is not a video about loneliness. It's about power, the kind you cultivate within. For centuries, the message has been clear. A woman without a man is incomplete. A home without a husband is a broken one. From fairy tales to family dinners, women have been raised on the myth that their value lies in being chosen by a man, that happiness comes wrapped in a ring, a last name, and a shared bank account. And if that doesn't happen, if she chooses a different path, society calls her names: alone, unwanted, difficult, too much or not enough. But what if that story was never meant for her in the first place? What if the ideal life was just a projection, someone else's comfort zone? Carl Jung believed that each of us must walk a path towards psychological wholeness. And for some women, that path requires solitude, not as isolation, but as liberation. We live in a world that glorifies romantic completion, but forgets the quiet power of self-realization. The truth: some women who live alone are not missing anything. They may be discovering everything. So what does Jungian psychology say about this journey? Who is the woman who walks alone? And what is she walking toward? At the heart of Jung's work was the idea of individuation, the lifelong journey of becoming whole, not perfect, not socially acceptable, whole. That means integrating every part of yourself, your light, your shadow, your femininity, your masculinity. He called this process a sacred task. And it's why Jungian psychology isn't just for scholars. It's for anyone brave enough to look within, especially the woman who chooses to live on her own terms. When a woman decides to walk away from what society expects and turns inward, she is not giving up. She is, in Jungian terms, beginning the journey of individuation. So what drives a woman to walk that path? And what exactly is she seeking in her solitude? She didn't end up alone. She arrived here after a journey of becoming. Some women walk away from broken relationships. Others never found a connection that honored who they truly are. And many simply realized that peace was more valuable than partnership. Living alone isn't always an escape from love. It's often a return to self, a sacred pause from the noise, the compromise, the performance, a space where no one asks her to shrink. Today, more women over 40 are choosing to remain single than ever before. They build careers, nurture friendships, travel solo, and embrace the rhythm of their own lives. For many, this choice isn't rooted in fear, but in clarity. The clarity that being alone is not the same as being lonely. In Jungian psychology, this woman is on a rare path, what Jung called individuation. She is integrating her inner world rather than outsourcing her identity to another. This doesn't mean she's closed to love, but it means she's no longer seeking it from a place of lack. She's done performing. She's not waiting to be completed. The woman who chooses to live alone is not running away from love. She may be discovering a deeper one between her and her soul. So what does this inner journey actually look like? Let's explore the psychological transformation behind her solitude. There is a moment, quiet but undeniable, when a woman realizes she no longer needs anyone to complete her. It doesn't happen overnight. It begins with discomfort, the silence, the stillness, the weight of being alone. But in that silence, something ancient starts to awaken. Carl Jung described this process as inner work, a turning inward to confront everything we were taught to avoid. For women, especially, the first step is often separating who they are from who they were told to be. The caretaker, the pleaser, the one who holds it all together. Jung spoke of the shadow, the hidden parts of ourselves we deny or reject. A woman who lives alone is forced to meet her shadow face to face. The fear of failure, the shame of aging, the guilt of being too much. And then there's the animus, Jung's term for the inner masculine. Logic, direction, willpower. As she integrates it, she stops waiting for someone to lead her. She becomes both soft and strong, receptive and decisive. This is the shift from dependency to wholeness, from being defined by love to defining what love means for her. The woman who chooses inner work doesn't avoid life. She embraces it more fully because she's no longer hiding from herself. She may still long for connection, but she no longer needs saving. She is becoming whole, not because of a man beside her, but because she dared to meet the woman within. So what kind of strength does that solitude create? Let's explore the quiet power of living alone. Living alone is often seen as an isolated experience, but in reality, it can be one of the most powerful journeys toward self-mastery and emotional health. While society may paint solitude as a negative, studies show that living alone can have profound psychological benefits, especially for women over 40 who've spent years balancing the demands of others. First, living alone fosters emotional regulation. When you are alone, you're forced to navigate your own emotions without distractions or relying on others. This leads to greater emotional intelligence, self-awareness, and the ability to respond to stress more effectively. Jung spoke of the importance of confronting and integrating the shadow, the parts of us we keep hidden. When a woman is alone, she faces these inner fears head-on, without the noise of external judgments or opinions. Second, solitude offers mental clarity. With no one else's opinions, needs, or expectations clouding her mind, a woman can gain the space to think, to dream, and to truly understand what she wants in life. Jung believed that the process of individuation is not just psychological growth, it's a creative act, and solitude is often the catalyst for creativity. When you're alone, you don't need to perform or adjust to anyone else's rhythms. You can tap into your authentic self and express your ideas without limitation. Next, self-sufficiency becomes a powerful ally. When you're on your own, you learn to rely on yourself, whether it's fixing a leak, making decisions, or simply being your own cheerleader. This builds resilience, confidence, and an undeniable strength. Jung once said, "The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely." Living alone creates the perfect opportunity to embrace your own company, flaws all. This embrace of self leads to higher self-esteem, a feeling of worth that isn't contingent on the validation of others. And then there's the profound sense of autonomy. For many women, especially those who've been in long-term relationships, living alone allows a rediscovery of autonomy, no longer compromising or adjusting to someone else's needs. You get to decide how you spend your time, what you value, and where you want to direct your energy. This autonomy is liberating. It's an act of psychological empowerment. Jungian psychology reminds us that individuation is the process of becoming the fullest expression of yourself, and sometimes that means being alone, to rediscover who you are, independent of external roles or expectations. So while many may fear being alone, the truth is, being alone can be a deep and lasting gift. It is in solitude that we can cultivate strength, clarity, and a profound sense of self-worth that comes from within. When you learn to live alone, not in isolation, but in empowerment, you can build a life that is deeply meaningful, intentional, and fulfilling. Living alone is not just an opportunity for emotional growth or psychological healing. For many women, it becomes a doorway to something deeper, a spiritual awakening. When you step into solitude, you step out of the daily distractions, the constant hustle. You find space to connect, not just with yourself, but with something greater, something infinite. Carl Jung understood this connection as an essential part of individuation, the process of becoming whole. Jung often spoke about the self as a transcendent whole that includes not just the conscious and unconscious, but a deeper spiritual essence that connects us to the universe itself. When a woman chooses solitude, she is not just retreating from the world, she is opening herself to something larger than herself. In this space, she can listen for the subtle whispers of her soul. Jung believed that to truly individuate, one must align with the deeper currents of the psyche. These currents are often symbolic, mythic, and above all, spiritual. Solitude allows for this alignment. In her quiet moments, a woman can tap into the archetypes that reside deep within her, a powerful spiritual energy that helps guide her decisions, heal past wounds, and open her heart to a larger truth. Many spiritual traditions speak of the need for inner silence. In Christian mysticism, there's the practice of contemplation, sitting in silence before God. In Buddhism, meditation invites us to find stillness within, where we can touch the infinite. In the Sufi tradition, solitude is a space for the soul to dance with the divine. Living alone creates the perfect environment for this kind of spiritual awakening. No one else's energy to pull you away, no one else's distractions to interrupt your journey inward. In solitude, a woman becomes more attuned to nature, to the rhythm of the world around her. As Jung said, the creation of something new is not accomplished by the intellect, but by the play instinct acting from inner necessity. When alone, there is space for play, for creation, for the deep connection to the life force that flows through everything. This is not loneliness, but oneness. A woman who lives alone often experiences a heightened sense of spiritual connection, whether it's to nature, to a higher power, or simply to the sacred within herself. This connection is transformative. In the stillness, she can hear the answers to questions she's never dared to ask. She finds strength in her silence, wisdom in her solitude, and peace in her own presence. Living alone, then, is not a separation. It's a reunion with the essence of who she truly is. And in this solitude, she comes to understand that the universe itself is within her. In our world, there's a stigma that clings to women who choose to live alone, a judgment that whispers, she's missing something, she's unfulfilled. Society often paints the image of a woman living alone as someone who's lonely, isolated, or perhaps struggling. But these stereotypes don't reflect the reality of so many women's lives. These misconceptions are deeply ingrained. She must be hiding from something, they say. She's too picky. She can't keep a relationship, but what these judgments fail to see is the truth beneath the surface. A woman who lives alone has chosen her space, her peace, her independence, and that doesn't make her incomplete. In fact, Carl Jung would argue that women who choose solitude are on a profound path of self-discovery. They are less likely to be seeking external validation. They're learning to validate themselves. Yet, despite this empowering journey, the world often doesn't understand. The woman living alone is labeled not as independent, but as untouched or unwanted. These misconceptions have roots in our cultural narratives. In many cultures, the ideal for women has long been tied to marriage, family, and external relationships. The idea of a woman living solo often clashes with this narrative. But what if living alone isn't a mark of failure, but an affirmation of strength? What if the woman who chooses solitude is doing so because she is already whole? Jung believed that the self is achieved not through external roles or relationships, but through integration and balance of the inner psyche. So, when a woman lives alone, she is doing deep, often unseen work integrating herself. She is learning what it means to be whole, without relying on the external validation of others. Yet society continues to measure women's worth by their relationship status. A woman who isn't in a relationship may be seen as unlovable, incomplete, or too difficult. These judgments completely dismiss her autonomy and ability to create her own happiness. But the truth is, there's power in choice. The woman who chooses to live alone isn't lacking anything. She is fully capable of forming meaningful relationships, but she isn't settling for anything less than what she deserves. She knows that her value isn't defined by her relationship status. Society's misconceptions about women who live alone are just that. Misconceptions. They fail to see the deeper truth. A woman living solo is not alone in the world. She is whole. She is the embodiment of self-love, self-sufficiency, and self-determination. When we free ourselves from society's narrow judgments, we can embrace the fullness of what it means to live on our own terms, whether that's alone or with others. The true measure of a woman is not how many people are around her, but how deeply she knows and loves herself. Living alone isn't something to be pitied, it's something to be celebrated. So, how do we challenge these judgments in our own lives? Let's take a look at how women can reclaim their narrative and thrive in their solitude. When most people think of a woman living alone, their minds often jump to loneliness, but living alone does not equate to being lonely. In fact, it can be one of the most empowering decisions a woman can make. There's a crucial distinction here. Empowered and alone are not the same as lonely. Loneliness is a feeling of lack, of something missing. Empowerment, on the other hand, is a choice, a powerful decision to reclaim your space, your time, and your life. A woman who lives alone has the freedom to shape her life on her own terms. She doesn't have to compromise her choices for anyone else's needs, desires, or expectations. Her time is her own. Her decisions are hers alone to make. This freedom doesn't lead to loneliness. It leads to self-discovery. When you are on your own, you have the space to really understand who you are. You can focus on your passions, your goals, and your growth without interruption. In solitude, you learn to fill your own cup. You don't need to rely on someone else to validate your worth or bring you happiness. You become self-sufficient, not just emotionally, but spiritually and intellectually. And in this self-sufficiency, there is a powerful kind of freedom. Carl Jung spoke often about individuation, the process of becoming your most authentic, whole self. And living alone is a direct pathway to this process. It's in solitude that a woman can discover what truly makes her feel alive and fulfilled, without the distractions of trying to fit into someone else's mold. For so many women, solitude is a sanctuary. It is a place of reflection, of introspection, where the noise of the outside world fades, and you can truly connect with your own essence. In this space, women learn to celebrate themselves, their bodies, their minds, and their hearts. Living alone allows a woman to prioritize herself, her needs, her health, her happiness. No longer are her thoughts constantly about someone else's well-being. She has the luxury to invest in her own personal growth, mentally, emotionally, and physically. But this doesn't mean she is isolated or cut off from the world. In fact, it can enhance her relationships with others. When a woman knows who she is and is grounded in her own sense of self, she's able to connect more deeply with others, whether family, friends, or even romantic partners. She's no longer seeking validation from them. Instead, she offers them authentic connection. Living alone gives you the space to thrive on your own, but it also makes your relationships more meaningful because they're based on mutual respect and understanding rather than dependence. And it's important to remember, solitude is not the absence of people, it's the presence of yourself. When you're not chasing external sources of validation, you can cultivate a deeper, more grounded relationship with others, one that's based on freedom, not need. The more you embrace your solitude, the more you become comfortable in your own skin, and the less likely you are to ever feel lonely. Instead, you'll feel empowered by your ability to navigate the world on your own terms. So empowered and alone does not mean isolated. It means you have learned how to be your own source of strength, how to walk through life with confidence, and how to create a life that is rich with purpose and self-love. Living alone allows you to understand that the greatest source of happiness is within you. And once you discover that, loneliness becomes a distant memory, replaced by a deep sense of empowerment and joy. As we've seen today, the idea that women who live alone are somehow incomplete, lonely, or unfulfilled couldn't be further from the truth. Living alone offers a chance to reclaim your space, your time, and your identity. It's not about isolation. It's about empowerment and self-discovery. It's about stepping into your own life, free from societal pressures or expectations. In solitude, you have the opportunity to connect with your innermost self, to understand who you truly are, without distractions or compromises. As Carl Jung said, the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. And for so many women, living alone is the key to unlocking that truth. But the journey doesn't end here. It's up to each of us to embrace our own solitude as a tool for growth, creativity, and peace. It's up to us to challenge the judgments society places on us and redefine what it means to be a woman living alone, not as something lacking, but as someone who is whole, empowered, and deeply connected to herself. So, I encourage you to reflect on your own life. Are there ways you've been holding yourself back from embracing your own empowerment in solitude? How can you, in your own life, start seeing solitude not as loneliness, but as an opportunity to grow, to heal, and to become even more of the person you're meant to be? If you're living alone, I want you to see it as a privilege, a chance to be fully, authentically you. And if you're not, consider the moments you can carve out for yourself, moments where you can reconnect with your inner self and embrace the power of being alone, without fear, without judgment. Remember, Empowerment doesn't come from the outside world, it comes from within. And the more we embrace solitude as a place of growth, the more we come to understand that we are not just surviving, but thriving. Thank you for joining me in this exploration of the truth behind women who live alone. Take these insights with you and let them inspire you to live boldly, live authentically, and never be afraid of standing in the power of your own solitude.